Hey, Mike here, and in this video we are going to do a hook and lift map and analysis of Liquor Store by Joel Corry. I think it's number 2 on the Beatport charts right now, and it is a great track. Just setting this up. Hopefully this is the right one. Let's see if we're good to go. Nice. Okay, so I'm going to try something a little bit different here too, where I created this kind of like map of the track. So we have the different sections of the track, and you can see I've already taken some notes because when I first heard it I was like, ooh, there's some cool things in here, and so I kind of already wrote some things down. But as we're kind of breaking the track down, I might just add some notes here, and I'll pause the video so you don't have to watch me type, and then maybe at the end I'll just kind of walk through this, some of the points that stood out to me as we were breaking the track down. And then, of course, I'll give you access to this document in the description of the video. Okay, so let's go ahead and give this a try. And let's just start making the hook and lift map. Now, the hook and lift map is where we just care about basically the hooks in the track, how the hooks develop in the track, and how the track kind of lifts over time, lifts in energy. And there's typically specific sounds that will come in or go away that will change or manipulate the energy levels of the track. So we want to keep track of those so we can see how the track just kind of moves around in energy over time, because that's a way that you can control the listener's attention and just keep people's interest and engage them over time. So first thing I'm going to put here is the beat, because I don't really care what's going on in the drums. If something comes in like a ride, then I do care about that, because that's going to be a lift element that raises the energy level. But in general, like when it comes to just the drums, I'm not going to break those down. So yeah, let's just go. Here we go. And let's try to figure out what makes this track tick and see if it meets the things that I think make a good track. So here we go. So kind of interesting, right away we've got the kick coming in at 4. You can see it just continues on here rather than coming in at the 8. No idea why that's happening, but it doesn't matter. But I'm just going to make a note of that. So here I'm just going to write HP for high pass. Actually, it's not high pass. There's just no kick, right? And then I'll just over here, I'll put beat. I'll just put full kick. Okay. And then might as well just go across here, and then we'll just do beat like that. These are obviously beats. It's just the beat without the kick. Here we go. See, really simple syncopation right here. Okay, so this is landing at the just the 2s. So right there, and then it comes over here. Okay, cool. So you could say those are the P2 for punks. We'll get into punks later. I don't want to talk about punks here, but let's keep going. One thing I really quickly want to point out is these syncopations that happen on the 2. So this is, let me see. Scratch whatever I was going to say. Let's just get into the good stuff, okay? So here we're going to get a little hook. All right, so let's write that down. That's going to be Vox. This is going to be, what does he say? Didn't know. Intro tease. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create different tracks for every single vocal that comes in. Now, the source of the vocal might just be one thing, but the vocal is going to be used in different ways, and I want to create tracks for all the different ways that the vocals used. This is a good way to actually see the technique that I call like vocal mileage. It's not really a technique, it's more of a concept. Like how much mileage can you get out of one vocal? What are the different ways that you can use it? And so every single different way that the vocal is used, I'm going to create a new track to keep track of that. So for example, if there's a vocal repetition, I'm going to make a track for that. If there's just like a verse, I'll make a track for that. If there's a chorus, I'll make a track for that. If there's chops, I'll make a track for that. So that way you can see the number of ways that one single vocal is used creatively in the track. And again, I call that little concept mileage. And so this one is just simply an intro tease. Just a standard thing to do is, especially right before the bass drop. So here we're going to get into the bass drop, and I'm just going to mark the section. Looks like I need to create some mapping really quick, so I'm going to put the slash. This is going to be period and or comma and period. That way I could just quickly make little markers. So here we go. This is going to be bass drop, and then the beginning was obviously the intro. So intro. Okay, so let's go back over here. Okay. Bass drop. And this is just a little bit of a verb spill, just an OTB over the bar. Obviously we now have a bass, so we're getting a proper bass drop, and a proper bass drop is where you just have the beat and the bass, nothing else really. And so let's just go over here and then get the bass. And we're now getting some punks, which is going to be the bass wub. Okay, so, and I'm just going to mark where those happen. So let's see, 16ths. I think that happens on the 8ths. There's 16th notes, but it's happening on the 8th. So right there. All right, and then we can just loop around that. I just wanted to make note of where that was, because remember how we were talking about the percussion earlier? So the percussion hit is going to happen here, but it's not going to happen here. And then the percussion will happen here, but it's not. And so these are kind of like call response punks. And so what are punks? Punks are just simply punctuation marks, basically in an 8-bar section. And so the most important ones are going to be the P4 and the P8. So the punk that happens at the 4 and the punk that happens at the 8. And the reason why I like to call them punctuation is because basically, if you think of like an English sentence, the middle of the sentence might have a comma, but the end of the sentence is going to have a more dramatic punctuation mark, like a period. And then if you go out like to the second sentence, maybe there'll be an exclamation mark at the end. So that's really dramatic. And the drops and the sections of a track follow a similar kind of structure. So this P8 right here, the punk that happens at around the 8th bar kind of, that's the most dramatic one, right? And then the P4 is just a little bit less dramatic. This is like the comma, this is like the period. And then if we're gonna go out to 16 bars, this would be like the P16, which would be like an exclamation mark. And you can even see just up here at the top, I'm just gonna automatically create an edit map. Let's just color this green. You can see right here that already we're getting something pretty dramatic happening right here at the P16. And there's not a crazy thing happening right here at the 8. Okay, but I'm just showing you kind of in advance the concept of punks. But we can, one cool thing, an extra kind of bonus that we're getting here is that he has these kind of call response punks happening. So these are just little punctuation marks that are happening, keeping track of the structure of the drop, but they're alternating. And so just for fun, I guess what we could do is put in, let's go to 16th notes. You can already hear that, how it's, okay. And so, did I draw that correctly? Let me see. There we go. And so you can see the syncopated hit happens here, and then this happens here, okay? And so these are just kind of in a call response kind of fashion. You get this one, then you get this one, you get this one, and then you get this one. And then later on, later on what we're going to get is we're going to get more dramatic things happening at the 4, for example. So these are kind of all little minor punctuation spots. This is the 1. This is the 2. Those are very minor. The big ones, again, are going to be the 4 and the 8. And we'll see things happen, bigger things, hooky things happen at the P4 and the P8 as the track goes on. But right now, we're just kind of filling things up. And let's continue. All right, and there we go. So we get the little acid thing. So I'm just going to call this an acid, SD for sound design acid. I'm just going to call it like a donk. Color purple. Okay, and then so that's just going to go right here. So how long goes on? Okay, and so this is just a delay. I'm just going to put delay on there so I know. That's the effect. But you can see that the biggest thing so far has happened at the P4. Okay, so these little tiny things, the syncopation and then the wub, those are tiny little things. Okay, those are just happening at the 1 and the 2, the P1 and the P2. And then here we have something dramatic, more dramatic happening at the P4. And as the track goes on, we'll have more dramatic things happening, okay, at like the P8, the P16. Let's keep going. Okay, and so there you go. So now we're at the end, we're getting 2 things, very dramatic. We're getting that big kind of like squarey swell kind of thing. So I'm going to write that down. Let's do squarey swell. Okay, and then we are also getting this happening right here. Okay, and then we're also getting a vocal. Okay, so we're going to do Vox P8, right? Didn't know. All right. So let's move this over here like that. Now you might be like, why are you putting these on different tracks? Because the producer probably has this on the same track. The reason why is because for me, I'm categorizing this thing as an intro tease. That is a technique. Okay, just because it's an intro tease doesn't mean there needs to be like vocal punks later on. You know what I mean? So these are literally different techniques in my eyes. Even though they're pretty much doing exactly the same thing, I categorize them differently. So this is an intro tease, and this is just going to be a P8. All right, and so that's why I'm putting them on different tracks, because to me, they're different techniques. Even though that seems a little weird, it makes sense to me. Hopefully it makes sense to you too. And same with this, I'm just going to do like a verb spill, just to keep track of these things, because you can cut it off and that's a cool effect too, but this producer's deciding to let things kind of like spill over and stuff. Okay, so let's just move this stuff over. All right, and then now we're getting a Vox Rep LP up. Didn't know. Okay, and so this, of course, I'm going to put it on a new track because it's a different technique. This is the most common way to introduce like a bigger section, a bigger vocal section in the break. And the next section is going to be the break. Let's talk about something else for a minute. So I don't know if I've talked about this in a video, but let's try to keep it brief. So basically, I'm going to tell you about CLT stories. CLT stories. CLT stands for chill, lift, and transition. Okay, or I'm going to say trans for short. So chill, lift, and trans. These are the only 3 things that you can do in a section. That's it. It's either a chill section, you can do a lift section, or you can do a trans section. Those are the only 3 things you can do in a section. They're the 3 emotions that you can kind of communicate. Those are the 3 underlying emotions that you can communicate to the listener. we are chilling. Okay, just chill out, dance, or chill out during the break. Just chill out. That's what you're telling the listener. Or a lift would be like, we are now lifting the energy, and the energy is rising. Get excited. That's kind of like what the lift. And then the trans, or the transition, is says, we are going somewhere. We are going somewhere new. Okay, and so those are the 3 things that you could do in every single 8-bar section of your track. Should be communicating one of those things. Okay, we are chilling, we are lifting, we are transitioning. Okay, those are the only 3 things you could do. Now, a lift has 2 parts to it. You can lift up or you can lift down. Obviously, lifting down doesn't make any sense. So sometimes what I'll say is settling. So with the lift emotion, you can lift the energy by bringing in like a ride or a shaker, and then or you can settle. So if something's there, you could just take it away. Okay, we'll see that for sure in a second. But for me, the most important one is lifting the energy up. Okay, there's obviously you could settle the track, but really, I really, when I think of lifting, I think just lifting that energy up. That's so important. And then transitioning is the same thing. You can transition up or you can transition down. Okay, so you can transition up in energy. Classic example of that would be like a build section, right? That is the quintessential transition section. We are going somewhere new and it's going to be explosive. Okay, that's a transition. Or you can transition down, you know, so like as sounds kind of just taper down, you know, as you're going into a build section, you're kind of just transitioning down, the energy down. And so a lift and transition kind of do similar things. So lift is going to lift the energy, it's going to bring the energy level down. And transition is kind of doing the same thing, except it's happening in a more evolved way. A lift is just abrupt, right? We have stepped up the energy from here to there, okay? And then a transition is just a little bit, it's an evolution, okay? So the reason why I bring that up here is because we are now entering a transition section right here, because we have a transition element, right? So a transition section is simply going to be defined by a transition element, and that transition element here is the Vox Rep LP up. So vocal repetition low pass up. Let me play it. All right, cool. So there you go. That is the trans element, okay? This is a transition section. What is this section, 8-bar section, communicating? It's very simple. It's communicating we are going somewhere new, okay? We are transitioning. That's what this section communicates. That's like the most important thing, okay? This section is a chill section. It's just chilling. It's just, you know, we got the groove, okay? Over here we got the intro, and then boom, we're coming into this section and we're just chilling. We're just chilling on the groove. We've got the bass line now. We're teaching people the bass line. We're not throwing a bunch of things on top yet, because we have to teach the listener the basic groove, how to move to the track, how to dance to the track before you start throwing hooks on top. Okay, when the body understands how to move, it's automatic now to this track, then you can start throwing things on top that engage the conscious mind, for example. But for now, we're just chilling. It's just chill, we're just dancing. Okay, but at this point, it's like, okay, we get it. So now what? Okay, well now let me transition into a next section, and that's what this 8-bar section. So here we have a chill, and then here we have a trans. Okay, now one last thing. I'm just going to say it now because I know it's going to come up later, but you can have a section both be a lift and a trans. So for example, here, if a ride came in, that would be a lift. And then if you have this element here, a trans, then you have both a lift and a trans section. And that's pretty common, okay? And that's totally fine, because here we're just lifting the energy, but we're also communicating that we're going somewhere, okay? And so that's totally fine. So you can have one section that is a chill, one section that's both a lift and a trans. You can obviously, okay, and that's pretty much it. Trying to think if there's anything else. Can't think of anything. Let's go. All right, cool. So going back to the punks idea, listen to this edit right here. So an edit for me is like when you do a high pass. An edit is just a dramatic punk in a way. Okay, it's just dramatic. It's where it's like standing out. Like this is a little punk right here because it's just a little syncopation hit, right? And that's a punk too, because punctuation really is just happening at like the structural moments of the track. It's just little punctuation. But this is very dramatic. And again, I call kind of more dramatic punks that happened at like the end of 8, 16, or 32. Those I tend to call edits. It's just more dramatic. And so here we're getting an edit. And that's why, you know, you can see I have an edit map here. Here we're getting an edit, and yeah, it's just the P16. That's all this is, P16. And we're just high passing, and we're transitioning, and it's just making that transition even more dramatic. Okay, and so I'm just going to also create the effects map. So we're going to do an effects up, and we're going to do an effects down. I used to do, or I still might, but I think I used to do like an effects accent. So you could think of like effects that like up effects, you could think of down effects for this guy, and then accent effects are just going to be things that like a crash, right? But for now, I'm just going to experiment with just keeping it to up and down, okay? Because sometimes, like when you have accent effects, they kind of get confused with down effects. But anyway, so we're just going to keep it to these two for now, up effects and down effects. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because right here we have a reverse vocal, and I don't want to create a vocal section for this. I just want to put it in the effects, right? Because it's just helping with the transition energy. So we'll just do a Vox, reverse Vox. You can hear it, and it's starting over there. So I'll put it like this. All right, but the acid has been brought over, and same with the kind of square swell. And I'm just going to put high pass P16, just high pass, just like that. Okay. I know you came to have a fucking party. I know it's about. Okay, cool. So lots of good stuff going on here. So now we're in the break. And so I'm going to put verse and break, okay? So the most important thing to do in a break section, well, the second most important. The first most important is that you actually give the feeling of a break. And the way that you do that is simply by high passing everything. So we're going to have a high pass beat. We're going to have a high pass bass. And I'm not sure if this, the wub is in there. We'll check in a second. But that's the first thing. To define the break, just simply make it breaky. And the way you do that is you take away the low end, basically. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you got to introduce something new. That's like the second most important thing. And so here we're just introducing the verse break, the vocal verse. And so that's the new thing. So I'm even just going to write new, right? And so that's most important, something new, something big. And that's what this vocal verse is doing here. All right, so we definitely have some, let's see, some LFO down effects, so LFO down. So, that thing. You came to have a fucking party. I know it's about time to get shit started. You know. And you can hear there's a lot of down effects going. There's like a res down effect going too. That I'm a bad man. Nobody can do this. Okay, so the wub is definitely still going. There's also, you can hear another Vox rep. Rep break didn't know. So with this thing right here, I know you came to have a fucking party. So you can still hear the didn't know, and it's panning here. So we're gonna do LP and panning. LP stands for low pass. So LP panning. Okay. You came to have a fucking party. And of course, I'm putting it on a new track. Why? Because it's a different thing. So this is a transition element. This is just kind of something textural that helps actually define the break. So let me finish the break idea really quick. So with the break, you've got to define the break, and that's by making it breaky, right? And that's by putting the high pass in. Another thing you could do to define the break is to define the space or include an atmos, like an atmospheric kind of sound. And that's what this kind of is. This is kind of like an atmos. Okay. And I like putting atmos in my track, Make Me Feel by John Summit. He's got a couple atmos sounds that are literally he just puts them there because, you know, you got to define this kind of new space in the break that just kind of backs up from the front of the mix. And by putting in this kind of atmospheric kind of sound, it makes the mix feel further away from the front, just creates like a bigger space that just moves backwards. That way, when you get back to the drop, everything just moves, boom, forward in the mix. Everything is now in your face. There's nothing atmospheric. It's just all aggressive in your face. And so having these atmospheric sounds just fills things out, makes it feel a little bit warmer, slows things down a little bit, and makes it feel further back from the mix. So you can create that contrast between the break and then the more kind of relaxed break and then the more aggressive drop. And so that's what's kind of going on here in my mind with this kind of panning vocal.
No, you came to have a fucking party. I know it's about time to get shit started. You know that I'm a bad man. Nobody can do this like I can.
All right, and so now we're getting into the build of the break. So let's do B1 for break 1. Okay. So the bass is still going. Let's hear if the wub is still going. Yep, the wub is still going. So now we're getting another vocal rep. And so this is most important in a build. In a build, when you're building the energy, one of the important things to do is to have a vocal rep or a hook rep. So if your track is featuring like a sound design kind of hook, then you want to repeat that in shorter and shorter increments. So this is going to be the box hook rep, and this is going to be in the build. And what's he saying? Something about I let you know. I think it's let you know.
I'll let you know if you didn't know.
Yeah, so let you know. And so here, I just put hook rep there because that's one of the most important things to do. So in a break, there's really 5 things to kind of look for. It's rep, roll, rise, grow, and then payoff. So some kind of hook repetition, whether that's going to be whatever your hook is, whether it's sound design or vocal. Roll is going to be like a snare roll typically. You can also do a kick roll, but some kind of roll, typically a snare. Rise, so risers. Grow, which is growing the space. So you can take something, just throw it out into a reverb. And then the payoff, or technically the pipo. I don't know if I'm going to go into a pipo in this video, but pipo is where you're kind of building the pattern. You're building the pattern, you're building the pattern, and then the PI in pipo, P-I-P-O, stands for pattern interrupt. So you break that pattern, that build pattern, and then you pay off. So PI, pattern interrupt, PO, pay off. So pipo, pattern interrupt, payoff. So this is the pattern interrupt because you can see that the pattern is breaking, and then there's a payoff, okay? And the payoff is going to be...
I'll let you know if you didn't know. I'm on my way.
Boom. Okay. So those are the 5 elements of a build. You got the rep, you got the roll, you got the rise, you got the grow, you've got the pipo or the payoff. Okay. And so, yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. So this is the rep, for example. This is the rep. All right, and so here we have a snare roll. So we got the roll, and let's kind of go like this. And then here we have the kind of rise. Now he's definitely going to have like risers in the background. They're kind of hard to hear, but they're definitely going to be there. We'll hear it as we kind of approach right here. But he also has a dedicated synth. I call it an ominous build synth for helping with the rising energy and that tension. And so let's put this in there too. And you can hear it. It's wide. It low passes up.
I'll let you know if you didn't know.
And so the pattern interrupt, it stops right. So the snare roll, where's the snare roll stop?
I'll let you know if you didn't know.
So all of this stops, okay? That's the pattern interrupt. So the snare roll stops. All this stuff right here is part of the pattern that you build when you're building the tension, the building pattern. So you have the snare roll, you've got the hook rep, you've got the ominous synth opening up, and you've got the effects. Now, one of the cool things that he does is he has this ominous synth just go bam, bam, bam. And so I call that a peak. We might look at that later in the second. But one of the things when you get to the top of the pattern interrupt, you want something, a sound, something to bring you to the very top of the peak. Okay, when you break that pattern, you're rising up, right? The pattern is just a rising building pattern, and you want something to take you to the peak moment of that. And the element that he's using is this ominous synth, and it's just going bum bum bum.
I'll let you know if you didn't know.
Everything cuts out, and then you got your payoff. Okay, so there you go. So let's do pay off. Okay, and color, and again you can see that I'm just putting all these different vocal techniques and uses on different tracks. And look at this, it's the same vocal, but look at the different ways that they're being used. They're all serving different purposes. And so that's why I'm putting them on different tracks here. And so did we miss anything? We have a snare roll, we have some up effects. Let's think about the build elements again. So we have the drums and the bass, that's just kind of going. There could be some kind of high pass automation on that. That's always a good thing to do. Let's see, and then with the snare roll, that's low passing up. Okay, that's just kind of slowly opening up, building tension, part of the pattern. We have a hook rep. So let's see, roll, we have rep, we have rise, and then we have the pipo. And then with the grow, I don't hear something really going out into a big space. That's okay. Like, you don't have to have every single element. Those are just the typical elements. You can actually think of this ominous synth as kind of growing, because that low passing, as it low passes up, that's kind of a growing. It's just getting bigger. That's what the grow part of a build is. It doesn't have to be reverb. Reverb absolutely is the easiest and obvious thing to do, and there's nothing wrong with doing the easiest, obvious thing to do. But in this case, the growing feeling that I'm getting, it really comes from this ominous synth. So I'm going to check that box for this track. Even though I typically look for a reverb, this ominous synth is really just giving us that growing kind of feeling. And grow isn't just like tension. So the snare roll is opening up with the low pass, and we're getting those highs, and that's really creating a lot of energy with a da 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 da, right? But that's not really growing. Like, growing is the sense and the feeling that things are just getting bigger, like the world of the track is expanding, right? And so that's the feeling that I want to feel in these sections, is things are just expanding, like a loaf of bread in the oven or something. And so again, the ominous synth is giving me that feeling. And so he checks all the boxes there on that. And then, so let's just keep going.
I'll let you know if you didn't know. I'm on my way to the liquor store.
All right, and so now we get into HD1, which is hook drop 1. And the reason why it's hook drop 1 is because we're putting a proper hook over it now, okay? So if we go back to the first drop, the bass drop, this is just the bass. We're teaching people the bass line. We're teaching people the groove of the track so they can dance to it. Here, we're transitioning. Here now, with the hook drop, people already get the groove, and we actually have the groove continue through the break here. Okay, because this is still teaching people the groove. We're still trying to get them to understand it. When we get over here to the main break, you'll see that that groove is taken away, which makes for a more dramatic effect when we bring it back. But that's because at this point, people already get the groove. Look, they've had this much time, like 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, actually, to learn the groove. So you could take it away over here and then bring it back for a dramatic effect. But at this point, in this break, it's good to keep the groove in. Right? Just high pass it, okay? There's no need to be crazy dramatic over here. And so this, the groove is going, we're teaching it to him over here, it just gets high passed, and then we just drop things here in the hook drop. Now that people already know the groove, here with a hook drop, we can start throwing things on top of the groove. And that's what's going on here. That's why I call it the hook drop, because now we're going to put a proper hook over it. In this case, it's going to be the chorus vocal. You can also have some kind of lead synth if your track is going to be more sound design driven. But something big and hooky is going to go over the drops typically. Typically, okay? Now, that's not always the case, okay? But there's going to be some kind of hook over the drop. Now, in my mind, I'm trying to think of an example of where the drops actually aren't featuring like a really big capital B-I-G hook. And it is Everybody's Free, the remix by Deeper Purpose. The drop is a minute long. I think both drops, the HD1 and HD2, are both a minute long. And they're just kind of giving you little chops of the hook. But the big hook, capital B-I-G hook, comes in the break section with that piano. And so that's a case where you're still getting a massive hook. It's just coming in the break section. And in this track, and in a lot of tracks, most tracks, you're going to have the hook, a big hook, playing over the drop. Okay. And the reason why the Everybody's Free track works so well with that format, where you're not really having anything kind of major happening over the drop, is because that's probably the biggest piano you'll ever hear in your life. It's so loud, in your face, it's enormous, it's massive, and it takes over the entire track. And so the drops are really just kind of like chill dance sections that sandwich that massive epic piano hook moment. That's just enormous, okay? And so that's why that works, because you're still getting that capital B-I-G element in the track, okay? But you're just getting it in the break build, the main break and build of that track. But in this track, we're getting a massive hook over the drops. And again, HD1, hook drop 1, that's why I like to call it hook drops, because we're going to we typically put a proper hook over it. I was just giving you an exception to that with the Everybody's Free. So we're going to create a new track here, and this is going to be Vox, and this is going to be a chorus drop. Okay, so let's go like this.
I'll let you know if you didn't know. I'm on my way to the liquor store with DVE and my didn't roll. Got too much head.
All right, cool. So we're going to do kick. So this is what's called a false start. Call this a false start because you're not getting the full groove. This is becoming more and more popular to do, even over the first drop. Like I really heard it a lot with, I mean, it's happened a lot, but like Chris Lake, for example, is probably the first one that I heard that just does it a lot, especially in HD2. Then John Summit started using it a lot, and then when I really started hearing this thing just get used everywhere, it was in West End's Life of Sin. Like he uses that on every single drop, and it gets progressively more dramatic, which is really cool and smart. Yeah, false starts are just showing up everywhere, even now in HD1. Before they would typically just be in HD2, to start HD2 to be really dramatic on that main drop. But now they're even coming earlier with HD1 here. So this is a false start. Another thing that he has is an entry. So I'm just going to label that.
I'm on my way to the liquor store.
So an entry is just those lasers. So just an entry to the drop. Okay, so he has an entry, and I'm going to mark that. So that's like a big hook. So I'm just going to do entry, hook, lasers. Okay, so let's color this. Go like this. There we go.
I'm on my way to the liquor store with DBE and my dick.
So obviously we have the bass here. And then I don't know if we have the wubs. Let's see if we have the wubs.
I'm on my way to the liquor store with DBE and my dick rolls. Got too much game to be.
Yeah, we do. Okay, cool. And then so let's create the chorus MIDI here.
I'm on my way to the liquor.
One thing I want to do is note that the mix is a little bit different on this vocal. So this is wide. So the mix on these chorus vocals is wide.
I'm on my way to the liquor store.
But if we come over here to the break verse, let's listen to
No,
this.
you came to have a fucking party. I know it's about.
Okay, so this, we have the mix is center, okay? And that's cool, I like that. So why is this happening? Why are these mixed differently? There could be a couple reasons. Number one is just the original files were that way. So the original file with the verse was just down the middle, and then the original file of the chorus was just wide. But it actually still makes sense. If you were going to do this on your own, it still makes sense to do it this way for this track in particular. And maybe for more general reasons as well. But when you have this new hook come in right here, you just want it down the middle. Like that's just like the standard place to put a hook. It's just down the middle. It's going to translate on mono. When you have something down the middle, that is the strongest way that you can present the track, because the left and the right channels are playing the exact same thing. And so there's anytime that you start to change what the left and the right are doing, you're going to weaken the sound, the presentation of that sound. And so just putting it right down the middle just makes you capture the attention, okay? And the funny thing is, though, when you put something wide, it also captures the attention. But the reason why I like it wide here is because when you have like,
I'm on my way to the liquor. Didn't know. I'm on my way to the liquor store.
you can listen, you can hear like the top of the kick, the open hat, those are down the middle. I think the claps are a little bit wide.
I'm on my way to the liquor store with DBE and my dick rolls.
But the thing is, the groove, a lot of the groove elements, like the open hat, the bass, which has some nice harmonics onto it in it, those are down the middle. And so when you're just loading everything down the middle, it just doesn't have that same kind of excitement that you're going to get from adding some kind of like stereo spread element. And so that's what the vocal's doing. The vocal's basically wrapping around the groove. You could think of the groove as biased down the middle. I think the claps, again, might be a little bit wide.
I'm on my way to the liquor store with DBE and my dick rolls. Got too much game to be slipping on.
So he's doing something really clever here. I didn't pick up on this. So when the vocal is playing, the clap is down the middle. When the vocal sings, he adds a layer to the clap that's wide. Okay, see if you can hear that. That's actually really cool. And I'm going to make a note of that in my little note. Okay, so the producer, obviously, and this is like a top track. This is like so well done. So he's obviously conscious of a lot of this stuff. But this is just a really subtle, cool thing.
I'm on my way to the liquor store with DBE and my dick.
So what I'm hearing is that there's a snare and then there's a clap layer. The snare is down the middle, and that plays when the vocal is playing. Then when the vocal stops playing, so in the gaps of the vocal, you're going to get a wide clap layer. The snare is still playing down the middle, but he adds a wide clap layer. It's very exciting.
I'm on my way to the liquor store with DBE and my dick rolls. Got too much game to be slipping on.
That is definitely something that I'm going to steal. That's a very cool thing. Okay, so let's move on though. But basically, I was trying to explain the mixing choice, the stereo mixing choice for the vocals. And so just having the vocals wrap around the groove in the drop is cool, because you have this very clear stereo separation between the two elements that are playing. The two elements that are playing are the groove and the hook vocal. Okay, the groove and the vocal. The groove is biased down the middle. The vocal is on the sides. It's a very clean, clear, separated way to mix it. When we don't have the groove as prominent in the break, then what needs to take over? The vocal. And so, of course, that's what happens over here. We have that vocal down the middle because that's the focus. But here, when we're trying to fit everything together, we're having that groove down the middle. Okay, so it translates in the club. It hits really hard. The vocals on the side just to create that stereo excitement and to have that clean stereo separation in the mix. So there we go. I think, I guess I like the way I put that. Hopefully that's clear. You'll have to let me know. Here we go.
I'm on my way to the liquor store with DBE and my dick rolls. Got too much game to be slipping on. I'll let you know if you didn't know.
So you hear this little sound that he has playing.
I let
That's cool. I'm not gonna like make a note of that, but it's just he's putting that in the gaps just to put something there, you know. So
flip and know. I let you know if you didn't know. I'm on my way to the liquor store with DBE and I didn't roll. Got too much game to be slipping. No, I let you know if you didn't know. I'm on my way to the liquor store.
So notice he doesn't have the acid thing on the 4 here. So here we have the acid playing on the 4, on the P4, but he doesn't have it here.
I'm on my way.
That's because he just doesn't, well, there's a couple reasons. Why he doesn't need to, because he doesn't need that to capture attention. The vocal is capturing attention. He doesn't need it. Second, another thing that captures the attention is that the drums come back in full. Okay, so the false start ends right here, and then we get the full drums again.
Got too much game to be slipping. No, I let you know if you didn't know. I'm on my way to the liquor store with DBE and I didn't roll. Got too much game to be slipping. No.
One thing he could have done is put like just like a little bit of a white noise blanket on top of this and fade it like a little bit of an accent effect, but it works. It does. It's not 100% necessary. All right. So let's see what else is going on here. Okay, so there we go. We got a P8, very dramatic. We have the drums come back in the P4, and then we have a P8 over here. And this is pretty dramatic. So we've got a couple elements. We've got that kind of this thing, the squarey build, and we also have a very dramatic clap fill. And I love drum fills, or just like fills in general. And okay, so this is a P8. Edit. This is I would definitely call this an edit because it's pretty dramatic. So P8, and this is just going to be high pass basically. That's what's going on. Hey, look at that. We got a lift. Okay, so let's see. All right, so there we go. We got our ride lift. So this is now a lift section. So here we go. There we go. I'm on my way to the liquor store with DBE and I didn't roll. Got too much game to be slipping. No, I let you know if you didn't know. I'm on my way to the liquor store with DBE and I didn't roll. Got too much game. I'm on my way to the liquor store with DBE and I didn't roll. Got too much game to be slipping. No, I let you know if you didn't know. I'm on my way to the liquor store with DBE and I didn't roll. Got too much game to be slipping. No, I let you know if you didn't know. I'm on my way to the liquor store with DBE and Now look at this, okay? The P16 over here is more dramatic than this because everything cuts away and you just get that vocal. It's almost reminiscent or a callback to the payoff over here.
I let you know if you didn't know. I let you know if you didn't know.
Look at this. I just noticed this too. Okay, so you can see this in the waveform, but I heard it. This is louder than this one. See that? Let's see. I don't think there's like a... Anyway, so you can just see it. This is louder, right?
I let you know if you didn't know.
So let's go over to the... Okay, so that's -4 right there. Let's see what this is.
I let you know if you didn't know.
You can even hear that's louder. Okay, let's try it again.
I let you know if you didn't know.
Okay, so -4. So maybe the peak...
I let you know if you didn't know.
So a little bit louder, okay? I mean, technically, but you could just hear it. That's the important thing. You could see it, that it's louder. Okay, this is just bigger than this. And so here, basically, he's just bringing the volume down to make this more dramatic as it comes in. And so that's really cool. I'm going to make that note as well. All right, moving on.
I'm on my way to the liquor store with DBE and I didn't roll. Got too much game to be slipping. No, I let you know if you didn't know. I'm on my way to the liquor store with DBE and I didn't roll. Got too much game to be slipping. No.
Okay, so another thing I want to point out is that look at how the so we were talking about the call response punks between the wub and the the beat here. But these are also happening in the in between the vocal. So check it out. So the vocal will sing, it'll cut, then you'll get this punk right here. The vocal will sing, it'll cut, you'll get this wub. And so you have this constant interaction, call response interaction, filling the gaps interaction between pretty much everything. The vocals and then the punks in the groove. Okay, so check it out. So listen, the vocal, you get this little punk. The vocal sings, you get this. So check it out.
I'm on my way to the liquor store with BBE and my didn't roll. Got too much head to be slipping though. I'll let you know if you didn't know. I'm on my.
Okay, now what I want to point out is the way that you do this is you always start with the vocal. You always start with whatever your hook is. If it's a sound design hook, if it's a vocal hook, if it's some kind of musical instrumental hook, doesn't matter. You start with that, you put it over a basic groove, and then you find out where those natural places are to add these kinds of little punks and sounds, okay, and skips. That's how you do this. And then when you take it away, when you take the vocal away, you just leave those in, and now that's part of your groove. It defines the movement and syncopation of your groove. But you create that by first jamming with the vocal, okay? It's so a lot of the times, like in courses, like even in my course, I'll often start with building the drums, because when you're teaching people like dance music, you have to get the drums right, and you got to introduce concepts like syncopation and swing and stuff like that, just to get people familiar with even doing things or thinking about stuff like this. But at the end of the day, as you get more advanced, these things have to be done in relation to the main hook of the track. Everything really is secondary to the main hook of the track. And so a lot of times you'll start with the drums, but understand that when you're making the drums, it's kind of like a placeholder. It's kind of like a placeholder. Until you find a hook, you put the hook over the drop, and then you maybe start moving things around a little bit to get the groove elements and the vocal to just interact a little bit better. And so, and it's best to find things like this where you can kind of repeat it and have these kind of nice little structural accents, these nice little punks, so that it keeps things interesting even when the vocal is not there. But then when you bring the vocal in, all of a sudden everything interacts and it sounds like, you know, someone's a genius. But really, you start with the vocal, and then you build kind of, or the sound design, whatever your hook is, and you build the kind of syncopation and punks around that, okay? That's... yeah, I forgot what I was talking about before that little tangent, but yeah, let's just keep going.
I'm on my way to the liquor store. I'm on my way to the liquor store with BBE and my didn't roll. Got too much head to be slipping though. I'll let you know if you didn't know.
And I might as well just cut everything, right? Just like that. Okay, cool. Let's move over here. And let's see what happens next.
Got too much head to be slipping though. I'll let you know if you didn't know.
Okay, so here we're going to have that ominous build. I'm going to duplicate it and just get rid of the MIDI here like this. And the reason why I'm duplicating it again is because it's serving a different role. Now it's serving as an entry. Okay, so this is an entry. And here, ominous synth. And this is going to be entry. Okay. Okay, you can hear some kind of accent stuff. We got some white noise here. White noise. We also have kind of like an LFO. You hear that? So you can hear LFO down. We also probably have just more white noise. Blast. Sometimes I'll call that like an MK blast or a Mark Knight blast, just because he does that a lot, where he just blasts some white noise over the top. Okay, and so LFO, white noise down. Okay, just kind of like a blanket of noise, just down effects there. Okay, so now we're getting another lift here. So this is going to be a block lift. Okay, it's kind of hard to hear, but let's see if we can hear it around here. Bump. So you hear that? Okay, cool. It seems like there's a little bit of an alternating pattern. You got something on the second 16th note, and then the other one goes on the offbeat, which is the third 16th note. A little bit of an alternating pattern there. But that block just comes in. It's just adding a little bit more interest, a little bit more rhythm, just because of this cool kind of little second 16th note kind of hit front rhythm. And so let's just see what else happens here. All right, so this is obviously didn't know Vox chop. Let's just do didn't know chop, and this is drop. Okay, so now okay, so what emotion do you think this is right now? This is just a chill emotion, right? So here we have chill, lift. Here we have chill, okay? Right, there's nothing transitioning. There's nothing slowly evolving, taking us somewhere new. We just get a chill, and then we get a lift, okay? And now we're in another chill section. And if we look at the kind of higher level of the drop here, it's going to be a minute. So what we also have here is what I call a clean A-B structure, or clean A-B for short. So this A section is just going to be chorus vocal, okay? This B section we're going to define by the vocal again, and we're going to do it's just going to be a Vox chop, okay? But that's it. So you have chill, lift, because we have the ride. Here we have chill, and then we're going to have probably either a lift or a trans. Okay, it could even be a settle, like where you're settling the energy as we go into the main break. So when you're settling the energy, that the most often you're going to see that is through the outro, or as we're kind of winding things down into the main break. Okay, so something's going to happen here. This isn't going to be a chill section. It's either going to be a lift. We're going to lift the energy. It's going to be a little bit hard. We've already got this ride and the block, so you can actually consider this a lift section. Okay, so maybe there's a little bit murky water here, but it's up to you, but because both ideas work. Okay, you could think of this as a lift section here because we are lifting the energy from the previous section. How are we doing that? Well, we're adding this block element, but the other thing is that we're taking the vocal away. Okay, so the reason why I personally like to think of this as a chill section is because I'm looking at this as dividing it into an A-B, a clean A-B. And this section right here is the chill section of this B section, okay? This is just, we're communicating chill because it's kind of the start of this B. And then something is gonna happen in this second 8-bar segment here of the B section. And again, it's either gonna be a lift, kind of hard to imagine what would lift it, but it's going to be a lift, it's going to be a trans, or we're going to start settling the energy down into the main break. So let's just make sure we have everything here, and then we'll see what happens in this next section. But the thing I want to point out is we're really looking at the higher level here, but that's what the track has to do. It has to communicate one of those emotions, and the emotion has to make sense, okay, given with what's going to happen in the track. And so that's why I'm paying a lot of attention to it, because it's got to do one of those things. It's got to do it very clearly. And so let's check it out. All right, so we're getting the clap fill again over here, and we are getting the kind of squarey synth like that. Okay. Okay, cool. So we're getting actually that acid donk right here. Okay. All right, so if you saw that I kept putting high pass on this bass, I apologize. That was probably annoying. There we go. Okay. Okay, so this right here is a P8. Okay, because check it out. Okay, now you might be like, well, isn't that like a P24 or something? Because this is 8, 16, 24. And the reason why I don't think of this as a P24, I never think of P24. That's a really weird thing. But this is definitely a P8 because, again, I'm thinking of these two sections as an A and a B. And this is the P8 of the B section, okay? And then over here, we're going to have a very dramatic P16, or we can actually even think of this as the P32. So this is going to be the dramatic end to the entire drop section. It's also going to be the dramatic end to this B section as well, okay? So this, I don't think I've ever called something a P24. Usually it's going to be P8, 16, 32. And this is the P8 of this 8-bar section, which is the first 8 bars of this B section of the drop. Okay, the clean A, B. Here we go. All right, we definitely have some down effects again over here. Okay, we still have the ride, we still have everything, we still have the block, the vocal, the acid donk, we've got the syncopation, we've got the wub. Okay, so right here, this is where now we start to get that trans element. And if I let this play, I remember thinking of this when I first heard the track the first time. I felt like this kind of felt a little bit dead to me. It would obviously it doesn't matter because the track is huge and is a great producer, obviously. But if I was doing this myself, I would have started a transition element a little bit sooner. Okay, I would have, or another thing I would have done is had this delay or these crashes or the down effects go on for longer, so they kind of intersected with the falling and then the lifting energy. So the down effects are overlapping then with the up effects. Okay, but right here we're getting a little bit of like a dead energy. We've already heard this before. We've already heard it a lot. See, we've already heard that over here. We've heard that over here. And so that's why I just want something else filling the space, something else that's communicating a clear motion, whether that's falling energy from the impact here or a rising transitional energy from something else. And so one thing that could have been done would have been to use like a hook rep or like the low pass up. That could have been one thing, or just have a longer up section, okay? The transition element starts to happen at the 4, and for my taste, and based on my experience and how I'm feeling about it, I would have started that a little bit early, because even as a listener of this track for the first time, I just felt this was a little bit of a dead space. Now, does it matter because it's only like, what is it, 4 seconds? Not really, but you know, I would be, but this 4 seconds could have been where someone skips your track. It could have been, you know, like, anyway. So that's just the feeling that I had, and I'm actually sticking to it. Let's see if we can feel it if I play it from over here. Okay, see, so I still felt that way. Like it was just dead because it was just like, we kind of already heard that. I still felt that way. And so I'd be interested to know if you felt that way too. I highly recommend listening from a way earlier point and seeing if you feel that way. But again, for me, the solution would have just been to bring up this the transitional energy earlier and make this a clear 8-bar transition section. Okay.
Didn't know. Didn't know. I know. I know. You came to have a fucking party. Didn't know. I know. You came to have a fucking party. I know it's about time to get shit started. No. You came to have a fucking party. I know it's about time to get shit started. You know that I'm a bad. No. You came to have a fucking party. I know it's about time to get shit started. You know, no. You came to have a fucking party.
All right, we got the acid donk over here. We've got some crazy down effects. I'm not even going to try to figure out what they are.
No. You came to have a fucking party. I know it's about time to get shit started. You know.
Okay, this is cool. So here we have the ride lift. That goes away here. And then here we have a down res effect. Okay.
No. That I'm a bad man.
And then we're getting a transition element, which is the didn't know. So let's see. Let's just bring this over here. Okay, so this is the same, providing the same function. Okay, it's just a transition up. It's a Vox LP up, so I'm just going to put LP up on there.
No. That I'm a bad man. Nobody can do this like I can. No. You came to have a fucking party. I know it's about time to get.
So we have a P8 there, just a high pass.
Nobody can do this like I can. I'm on my way to the liquor store. Like I didn't roll. Got too much game to be slipping though. I'll let you know if you didn't know. I'm on my way to the liquor store. With DVE like I didn't roll. Got too much game to be slipping though. I'll let you know if you didn't know. I'm on my way to the liquor store. With DVE like I didn't.
All right, so we have to create a new track for this. So this is going to be the vocal break. Let's do main break. Okay. And this is going to be the chorus. And the thing that's really cool about this is that it's starting out into a verb. So it is really creating that break kind of vibe. Remember before how we were saying like just to define the break, define the space? Well, that's what this vocal is doing. Okay, so this is going to be verby and LP up. Okay, so low pass up. This is going to be a low pass up as well. And then we have some down effects over here. Boom, like this.
Got too much game to be slipping though. I'll let you know if you didn't know. I'm on my way to the liquor store. With DVE like I didn't roll. Got too much game to be slipping though. I'll let you know if you didn't know. I'll let you know.
All right, and so just like before, we talked about the Vox hook rep, and so that's what we're getting now. We're getting a build section. Transition, what are the elements of the build? Rep, roll, rise, grow, pipo, okay? And so let's see if we get those. So this is the Vox rep. We're also getting the didn't know over here, okay? So there we go, we're getting that, and that's panning. So we're getting that as well. And that panning also does something else. It creates a little bit of instability. So the stereo instability, so that's cool. And I forgot to bring this guy over here, just like that. So that's going on in the break 1 2, and it's also happening now in the second in the main break and build. I'm just going to put a marker here. This is going to be MBB for main break and build. So here we go. You definitely hear the ominous synth coming up here, just like that. Okay, so we have, and then the risers here. So we have the hook rep, which is going to be basically these guys. This guy's panning, creating that stereo instability, building more tension. We've got the snare roll, low passing up. So we got the roll, the rise, the rep. We've got the ominous synth, which is growing the space, or growing the vibe, like just expanding the vibe. And then we're gonna have our piepo over here. So let's check it out. Okay, and then, so what's cool about this is compared to the last one, check this out. So with the dun, 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 that peak sound, we still have a lot of the pattern, the build pattern elements going underneath this. Watch this. So we still have the risers, we still have the drums, we still have, I think we have the drums. Okay, so we don't have the drums, let's take those away, but we still have the snare roll, and we still have the risers. Okay, but over here, I don't think we have those anymore. We don't have the snare roll. Okay, so we don't have the snare roll, but we do have the risers. And the vocals also go away.
I'll let you know if you didn't know. I'm on my way to the liquor.
All right, there we go.
I'll let you know if you didn't know. I'm on my way to the liquor store.
All right, so just like before, we have the 5 elements. We have the rep here with the vocals. We have the snare roll. We have the risers. We have the ominous synth growing the vibe, growing the energy, making it feel bigger. And then we have the piepo with the pattern interrupt with all those, the build pattern elements. They stop. We got that peak sound with the bump, 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 bump. So I'm just going to write peak. And then we have the payoff. So that we have the pattern interrupt, then we have the payoff with the vocal, and then boom, we go into the drop.
I'll let you know if you didn't know. I'm on my way to the liquor store.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy all of this stuff over here like this. Boom. Okay. And let's see what we need to change here. Okay, because it's probably going to be pretty similar.
Didn't know. I'm on my way to the liquor store with DVE and my didn't roll.
Okay, let's just check. We got the kick, the bass, we got the wubs, we got the vocal.
I'll let you know if you didn't know. I'm on my way to the liquor store.
We've got the entry, we've got the lasers.
Liquor store with DVE and my didn't roll. Got too much game to be slipping no. I'll let you know if you didn't know. I'm on my way to the.
We got the false start, we got the groove kick back in at 4.
I'm on my way to the liquor store.
But now you can hear the ride. Okay, so let's move that ride over. So what I call this front loading. So front loading is when you start to take, so for example, we have a certain development of the drum elements in HD1, right? And in HD2, what you do is you start taking these elements and you move them closer to the front. You start front loading HD2. So, and what that means is you start bringing in the excitement earlier, right? Because here, the reason why you start spacing things out is because, look, we have to introduce this new chorus. Okay, so let's just give them the new chorus. Let's let them digest it. Boom, now we need to lift it. We need to lift the energy. That's why we're going to bring in this ride here. Okay, so we're bringing things in a little bit slower, a little bit more one at a time. But over here, we can start front loading things and get that and pack that excitement closer to the front. Pack that excitement in. Okay, so let's listen to what else is going on.
I'm on my way to the liquor store with DVE and my didn't roll. Got too much game to be slipping no. I'll let you know if you didn't know. I'm on my way to the liquor store with DVE and my didn't roll. Got too much game to be slipping no. I'll let you know if you didn't know. I'm on my way.
So the exact same thing as before. We've got the clap fill. We've got that kind of square swell type of thing.
I'll let you know if you didn't know.
That's a P8. We've got the high pass on the drums and the bass.
I'm on my way to the liquor store with DVE and my didn't roll. Got too much game to be slipping no. I'll let you.
So here we have a ride, but he's also brought the blocks in. Again, bringing things in earlier, front loading the excitement, making things happen faster towards the end. One thing that maybe he could have done here too is if you want to lift it over and above a ride, you could have got a wide shaker, 16th note shaker. That could have lifted the energy. Another thing would have been like a 16th note tambourine. That would have been another way to lift this even more over and above the ride. Okay. Anyway, just something to throw out there if you were thinking, how can I lift this even more? Those are two things you could do. Another thing is anyway, the way that you can lift the energy. There's two basic ways that are coming to my mind right now, and I've probably written it down somewhere, like all the ways. But the two most important in my mind are high frequencies, adding high frequency drive. So ride is an example of a high frequency drive. It's just this constant sheen, this bouncing sheen on top that just adds so much energy. So high frequency energy. So that could be a ride, that could be a tambourine, that could be a 16th note shaker. You put all those together, you're going to have epic energy on the top end. Okay, so that's the first thing. The first thing is adding high energy in the top end. The second is speed. Okay, so increasing the speed. So yeah, you got adding high frequencies to the top. That's a way to lift the energy. Literally almost feels like you're lifting the track in the frequency spectrum. And again, the second one is speed. So frequency content in the upper and the top end, and then speed. And speed would be, for example, 16th note shaker. That does both. You get high frequency content and you have the 16th note speed. Okay. Now, another thing with speed, though, is you can use like a block to add the speed. So that's more of a mid-range sound, but that would still also add a lot of energy. And I'm trying to think, there's a track recently that did this. I can't think of it off the top of my head. Give me 1 second. Yeah, I can't think of who it was, but if I find the track, I'll put it in the description of this video. But there's tons of tracks like that where they just add. You know what? I'm gonna find it. Hold on. All right, so I found a track where the audio just cut out. On my way to the liquor store with DVE, but my didn't roll. Got too much game to be slipping though. There we go. I think it might be this one. I'm on my way to the Okay, cool. So I found a track. So what we're talking about right now is speed, or using speed to sounds like we're using drugs, but using speed to pick up the energy. And so I found a track. It's Hunt Down. There's another more recent example, but I love this track, and so this is the one that kind of I ended up searching for because I couldn't remember the recent track that did this. But okay, cool. So check this out. All right. Okay, so this is the basic groove, okay? The bass drop, basically. Here we go. Okay, so this track, then what they do is they put the percussion in later, and that speeds up the track. Check it out. And so that's just an example of using a mid-range element with speed, 16th notes typically, to speed up the track, to add more energy, because we're talking about lifting. And you can lift it by adding high frequencies, or you can lift it by adding speed. You can lift it by doing both. So 16th note shaker, 16th note tambourine. A ride is really just basically just a high frequency sheen. You can also lift the energy with 16th note percussion, and I just wanted to give you an example of that. And here it is. Okay, so again, here's just the bass drop, the basic groove. And then with the 16th note percussion. All right, there you go. And that gives you the example that I wanted to share with you. So anyway, what I was saying is right here, how could he have lifted the energy? We went into a deep dive on how he could have lifted the energy. And yeah, again, high frequencies or speed. Those are the two most important ones. You can combine them with like 16th note shakers or tambourines. So anyway, moving on, let's see what happens now. So we know that the chorus, just like an HD1, it played for 16 bars, and then we went into the B section. All right, so here we have HD2, and then here I'm just gonna delete the hunt down track for now, and then here we're going to do A. You're just gonna define the section as chorus vocal, right? And then the B section is simply gonna be probably the vocal vox chop, okay? And just like before, it's the same thing. We get the entry, we have the white noise blasts, but I think one thing is different about this. Let's check it out. Okay, and there's more of a false start here. We're taking out the... Okay, so there you go. We have another false start. Now it's halfway through the HD2, so I'm just gonna write false here. And it's false because we don't have the hat, we don't have the clap. It's just the kick and the bass. And that's going to be your false start right there. And so that's just a little bit of a differentiator. Makes it a little bit more dramatic here second time around, adding a little bit of variation. But more than just variation, dramatic variation. Because it makes that, when everything comes back in, it just makes it more dramatic than the first time that someone heard it. It's subtle, but it is they'll feel it, you know, subconsciously at least.
I'll let you know if you didn't know.
Okay, so there's a little bit of a laser sound that I missed there. Burp, burp, burp. I'm trying to think that we haven't seen that anywhere else, right? What are these entry lasers here? Right here.
I'm on my way to the liquor store.
Okay, cool. So let's...
Got too much time to be slipping. I'll let you know if you didn't.
Okay. Nice. Okay, so I missed these lasers here. That's cool. So these technically aren't an entry, so I'm going to just put them on a new track here. So we have SD lasers. Okay, so let's put these guys down here. Okay. And just making sure that it's...
I'm on my way to the liquor store with DVE and my didn't roll. Got too much time to be slipping. I'll let you know if you didn't know. I'm on my way to the liquor store. I'm on my way to the liquor store with DVE and my didn't roll. Got too much time to be slipping. I'll let you know if you didn't know. I'm on my way to the liquor store with DVE and my didn't roll. Got too much time to be slipping. I'll let you know if you didn't know. Didn't know.
So same thing, I'm just adding in these lasers here. We have the P8, we've got the clap fill, and we have that kind of squarey swell. Same thing as before. Here we don't have the donk. I'm anticipating maybe it's going to come at the 4 now. Okay, so this is a good example of the opposite of lifting. So lift, you could do up or down. So down is settling the track. And so here we have a really good example of settling the track because we're taking an element away. Okay, so that's the opposite of a lift. A lift, you bring in an element to lift the energy, and this settle, you take away an element to settle the energy, and it makes perfect sense that we're going to be settling the energy because we are going to be moving into the outro. So what gets taken away? The vocal. God, the most important sound, really. And so that's a great example of just a cut and dry example of settling the energy, taking away a sound, settling the energy, and that helps us move into the outro as we kind of subtract things away. So here we get this, we get the risers, we got the P32 here. I mean, it's all great. Really cool how it just cuts to the outro there. So we don't have the ride, we don't have the block. So we still have the acid donk, we also have the wubs, and we have the beat syncopation that's interacting with the wubs. One of the things with an outro, I mean, it's just an outro, so who cares? But I personally like boring outros. Boring outros are where you're literally subtracting away. So in a boring outro, you'd have like 16 bars of just the groove, and then you'd maybe take the bass away, and then you high pass. I think that's exactly what's going to happen here. Now, I also, if you're going to have something in the outro other than just the groove, then another thing that you could put in would be punks. Okay, and so that's what's going on here, is he still has the punks. He doesn't have the hook like the vocal, but he has the punks. And so that would be another, I guess, acceptable. Not that I'm one to say whether things are acceptable or not, but like for my own music, like if I'm going to do a boring outro and I'm going to put things in the outro other than just the groove, then it would be the punks. And there we go, and we got that big, we got the high pass with the P8, and we're getting the squarey thing. So now the bass and I think the wub goes away. Does the wub go away? Yep. So here's just take the kick out. And no happy ending there. Happy ending is when you have just something fun at the end. So you could have put like that donk sound or something like that. It's just a fun thing to do, but it doesn't matter at all. So there we go. Let's go hop over to the document here. And okay, so for the intro, it was just pretty standard. 16 bars, I believe, and then we just get into the bass drop. The bass drop was standard. We just had the chill and then lift, or chill and trans. So we just introduced the bass line. Right thing to do. Transition with the Vox Rep LP up. So standard. Okay, nothing much to talk about there. So so A equals chill, and then B equals trans with Vox Rep LP up, about as standard as it gets. Okay, and then with a break, you have the clean A B2. A equals the Vox verse, and then B equals the build with the Vox rep, which is really the hook rep that you need. It also had the other elements, which is the roll, the rise, the grow with the ominous synth. The build had a cool ominous synth that made the space grow, expanded the vibe, okay? And then, of course, you had your pipo, which is just pattern interrupt and payoff, and that is pretty standard. HD1, we had the wide vocals contrast with the center vocals in the break. We went over why that was. Okay, when the vocal is playing, the clap is down the middle. So these are notes that I took earlier. When you have that vocal down the middle, when you had the vocal in the chorus, the clap or the snare was down the middle, and then there was a wide clap when the vocal was not playing. That was really cool. The P16th payoff is louder than the break payoff. So here's that P16th note payoff, or P16th payoff. Then here's the break payoff, and this one is louder. Just interesting because this one's softer to make it more dramatic as the drop comes in. I think I made that note. MBB, let's see what I got here. Got a lot of notes. So really sophisticated strip. Okay, so the strip is this section right here. I'm just going to actually do something really quick, which is label the outro. So the strip right here is where you just have the kick, the bass, and then you have the vocal playing on top typically. There's an extra element here with a ride, but that's a strip section. Also a good example of just kind of like a subtle section because you're taking elements away. But let's just write strip here. And so I wrote very sophisticated strip, steps down 3 times. So first step down is just the strip. So if we come from this section, just full groove, obviously, when we step down into the strip because we take away the hat, we take away the clap. So that's the first step down. Then the ride goes away with a res down effect. And so that happens at the 4.
It's about time to get shit started. You know.
So that's the second step down. Okay, we are stepping down the energy. It's not a gradual evolution like a trans. So I wouldn't really call this a trans down energy. This is just a settling energy section that happens in steps. And so here we have that first step down into the strip. Then we have the second step down at the 4, which is where he takes away the ride. So that's a great example of settling the energy again, because when you settle the energy, you're taking away a sound. What's he taking away? He's taking away a ride, which is high energy. Remember the 2 ways that I said that you can lift the track was through high frequency content and speed. Well, in this case, he's taking away high frequency content. That is the opposite of lifting, right? That is settling. And so that's a good example right here. So that happens at the 4. And then he also has that kind of punctuated with this down res effect. Okay, and that is kind of a trans element, right? Because now we're trans down. Okay, so when you're transitioning, a trans typically for me is when you're going up in energy, so you're having an upriser. But of course, you don't have to always transition up, you can transition down. And so this down effect is literally helping us transition down. So this is a little bit of a trans element right there. Okay, and it makes sense. Because we're going into a new section here. So this is kind of letting us know, hey, we're going down to the very bottom. This is the very bottom of the track. The nadir, N-A-D-I-R is what I think is how you spell it. But anyway, and so that's really cool. And then the third step down is just simply the high pass at the end.
Nobody can do this.
So one stepping down, 2 stepping down at the 4, 3 stepping down at the 6 as we go into the last 2 bars here, into the high pass. There's also a trans at the end. Oh yeah, and then we have, so definitely trans elements here. We have that down res, and we also have the Vox rep LP up over here. Didn't know. There you go. So we have a trans up. So this is definitely like a settle and a trans down here at the end. And the trans elements are going to be that settling down lifter or whatever, and then the Vox rep LP up right there. Okay. That's really cool. So most producers will keep it chill through a strip drop section. That's a totally fine thing to do because it communicates a settled energy. But I wrote this is great because it's an example of a strip explicitly and incrementally stepping down the energy, and it happens right under the listener's radar because they're focused on the vocals. So all this emotional communications and subtext happens. The listener can feel it, but it's a subconscious thing because what they're focused on is the vocal, okay? And so that might be fun, is like just listen to the vocal and feel the emotion that the emotions change in you, and you settle. You could feel the energy settling, and that's because of what's being done throughout the section, kind of under the radar. And I say this from the perspective of a listener, because an average listener won't pick up on anything that we're talking about here. Maybe they will if they tried, but they have no reason to try. They're just going to be listening to the vocal, and they'll just feel themselves settling down in energy. So listen to the vocal and see if you can pick up on that.
I know you came to have a fucking party. I know it's about time to get shit started. You know that I'm a bad man. Nobody can do this like I can.
And so when we land here, everything makes sense. We've stepped the energy down 3 times, and we're taking that final step and just jumping off the cliff. And we're getting into the section where everything is basically low passed, and then we're going to build up. So we're walking down, literally steps. We're walking down steps until the very bottom, the basement of the track. This is like the basement of the track, where, like, you know, it's just low, just a lot of things are just filtered out, right?
You know, I'm on my way to the liquor store.
So we're really far away from the front of the mix, because this is happening in a reverb, and there's no high frequency content. So this is like the basement of the track, okay? Anyway, I like that the peaks are different between the break 1 and the MBB. In MBB, in break 1, the snare is under the peak, but in MBB, the peak synth is on your own. So we looked at that before. I mentioned that here. So this is the main break and build peak. Okay, taking it up to the top, and there's no snare under that, but over here, the snare is under it. Okay, so I just like that differentiation. It makes this spot more sparse. It's just taking more things out, so there's less going on here. And so it's really bringing this down before it gets brought back up there. I like to think of this as it's always darkest before the dawn. And so this is bringing it as low as it can go, and then bringing it a lot higher. We're not going in with full energy here, because we're coming in with a false start, which is exciting and different and new. But he's still bringing it down here, which is cool. And I like that differentiation between the peak in the MBB and the peak in the break 1. I also like that the MBB build doesn't have the drums or bass. Yep, makes it more of a dip or nadir lowest point compared to the break 1. Really, in B1, there's no need to take away the groove. That's right. I'm agreeing with myself. Keep it going, because people are still learning it. Plus, there's new things on top of it in the break that, and so that's why it doesn't get old. And so what I'm saying here is, in the break, you can let the groove go here. Number 1, because people are still learning it, but number 2, because there's other things, new things that people haven't heard on top of it. So it's not going to get old. It's just getting recontextualized. So here we have a groove. That's one context for the groove. Here's another context for the groove. It has a high pass, but we also have a major hook on top of it.
So it's about time to get shit started.
And so all of that is new. And so this cannot get old almost by definition, because there are new things going on. And so that's what I mean by there. But when you get to MBB, you've heard it a lot, right? So it's going to get old. And so taking it away is just another way to make HD2 more powerful, because you're setting up that contrast. The technique... Okay, then this is a technique. I'm not going to get into the video because it's a long. Weighing anchor is where you take away the kick. So weighing anchor is when you pull up the kick, when you pull up an anchor on a ship, and so the ship is now floating without an anchor. And so that's a technique you could do in tracks, where if you take away the kick, you're weighing anchor. You're taking away the anchor of the track, so now the track's floating, so you get this kind of floating tension. And then when you get that anchor back in the drop, it just feels really satisfying, and the track is now anchored again. But what I'm saying here is, when you take away the groove, that's just like a next level anchor. If you take away the whole entire groove, the track is just floating in the sky, like and so there's just a lot of tension there. So when you bring the entire groove back, it's just, I like that idea, floating in the sky. When you take the when you bring the groove back, it's just an epic release of energy, and it feels really good and secure. So HD2 we talked about is pretty much the same as the The first one, sandwich track, is where HD1 and HD2 are basically the same. A Parmesan cheese sandwich is where HD2 and HD1 are pretty much the same, but HD2 is elevated in some way. That's not what's really going on here. There's not a distinct elevating sound in HD2. So for example, if there was no ride in HD1, but there was a ride in HD2, that would be an example of an elevation sound. But here we're just front loading. So he's front loading the energy. So he's bringing the ride in earlier. He's bringing the block in earlier. And then at the end, in the A, B, C, D, in the fourth 8-bar section there, he settles the energy by taking away the vocal. So he's kind of helping transition, stepping down as we go into the outro. So yeah, the main thing I took away from HD2 is just the front loading. Also, HD2B to help by taking away the vocal to help step down into the outro and settle the energy. Okay, and then the outro subtractive with punks. Oh my gosh, there we go. And that's pretty much in a nutshell. Yeah, weird that the kick comes in at 4, but standard otherwise. Oh, he also has a motif in the intro. Okay, you don't hear this all the time, but I love hearing motifs because it's just a catchy way. So something that you can add to the groove that just makes it catchier, or the drum beat specifically. And it's so simple. It's just boop, 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 boop. It probably just comes from a combination of loops, but he heard it and he liked it. I don't know if it was intentionally done, but he heard it, he liked it, he kept it, and it's a motif, no doubt. And then you can hear it at the end. Very, very simple. Up, down, pretty much is what it is. Up, down, that's what it is. And so that's going to do it for this. Again, I'm going to leave this document underneath the video description. And if you got any questions, leave them down below, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, peace.